heart disease was a little known issue before that. It was not something that was in the normal lexicon in America or around the world, and certainly not for doctors even. Then when the American President Eisenhower had a heart attack, there were headlines, and you can actually look these up, and it says, what is this new heart disease? Doctors baffled about this heart disease.
COVID.
Yeah. So it's like, it was a new thing, and people were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. So there was a lot of people looking at it. So what does that tell you? That tells you that it was not a problem before that. It was not something that was a big prevalent issue. And everyone before that was actually was trying to eat butter. They were trying to eat lard. They were, cooking with lard. They were eating a lot of meat. They were the idea was to try to get enough fat and enough meat, and we had no heart disease, and as one doctor and scientist pointed out, when everything was they started blaming fat and meat on everything. They said, we've been eating fatty meat forever, and if you look at the fossil record and you look at like the stable isotope studies and things like that, we really have been. And how can an ancient diet cause a new disease? Because it really was a new disease. Yeah. So they were looking at it, and there were sort of two camps. There were people that saw that the increase in refined sugar perfectly tracked the increased prevalence of heart disease in the 20th century. And then the sugar company sort of got wind of this. And there's actually documents, there are internal memos that they're speaking about this, where they say, hey, look, there's this sort of research going out. We need to protect our interests. So we need to put out sort of opposition research, which is a normal thing in industry. I think Coca-Cola funds most of the nutritional research at the university level today.
What?
Yeah, they spend 11.
That's incredible.
They spend 11 times. Coca-Cola spends 11 times more in research for nutritional research than the NIH.
Wow.
Right?
Fuck.
So
what? Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, you see, it's like, well, this study says this and this study says this. Like, who paid for it?
Yeah. It's one of the biggest things that I've always looked into first is who's funded the study, because you do know there's a bit of a bias behind it, and they're going to cherry pick some of the data, and this study suits my narrative.
How do you know which studies to even trust?
Well, and that's the thing, you don't always know who funded it. Yeah. And in the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, the opposition research that the sugar companies were putting out, they actually didn't disclose that they were funded by the sugar company, which is illegal and unethical. So, but that has since come out, and so the journal, so the University of California, San Francisco Medical School, which is a top 10 medical school in the world, and a top 10 research institution in the world, they published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, which is a top medical journal in the world, in 2016, actual internal memos from the sugar companies back in the 60s.
Oh, they published it wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So you know how we had the tobacco memos and things like that? Like 30 years. Oh, no. There's no research. Our research says that this is all fine.
Our long distance runners love Marlboro.
9 out of 10 doctors choose Camel.
Yes.
That was an actual ad.
Yeah. What the fuck? Yeah.
And so, it's the same thing. Right?
Yeah.
And so now we have the sugar memos.
Yeah.
Right? So they're actual internal memos, their own internal communications, detailing how they paid off 3 Harvard professors to falsify data and publish fraudulent studies to make it appear as if cholesterol caused heart disease, and to exonerate sugar and say that it was totally safe.
Fuck. Wow.
One of those professors was named head of the USDA, and it was he who authored and published the 1977 USDA declaration saying that cholesterol caused heart disease, saturated fat increases cholesterol, stop eating both.
Wow.
For the sake of your life. And it changed the entire
Who would have thought a professor was the first ever sugar baby?
Well, who would have thought profit drove people's motives?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. But that's the thing too. You think about the profits, right?
Yeah.
How much do you think they got paid? It must have been a lot, right?
Professor Sugar Daddied about
integrity. I mean, they're tenured professors at Harvard. They're top tier researchers.
Probably fuck all, or was it a lot?
$6,500.
Wow.
Which today is the equivalent of $55,000 US. That's it.
Oh, wow.
That's what their souls were worth. Now, there's going to get a bit more than that because, you know, a lot of these professors derive their income from the research they do because when you get a research grant, you know, you get several $1 million for a research grant. Part of that is your salary.
Yeah.
You know, and say, well, this is how much this is going to cost me to do this research because I got to hire these guys, I got to pay them this, and obviously I need to pay myself that. And half of that goes to the institution. That's why universities like doctors or professors that do research, because depending on the institution just off the top takes 40 to 50% of that. And so when you're structuring your grant request with a charity or sugar industry or whatever, you're basically just doubling what you need because the school gets half of that. And so that's the thing. So they were funding a lot of these fake research papers and they were paying for it, so like part of that those research grants from the sugar companies were going to pay them. So they ended up making more money than that. But the initial contract to say, hey, do you want to make a deal with the devil was $6,500.
Fuck.
That's It's nuts.
And
that still happens today in all industries, surely.
It must. It's not supposed to. You're supposed to declare your conflicts of interest and where you're getting this money from. So that is actually absolutely out of bounds what they did there. The sugar companies are still funding research. Most of it, you can track it down, but it wouldn't be apparent just on the face of it. Like you would have to do some digging.
Well, after that Fauci clip we saw, he doesn't have to disclose who pays him.
His royalties for
the royalties. So there's some form of that in different aspects.
It's all law, I guess. Yeah, I hate that when it comes down to the technicalities of like, well, technically I don't have to tell you this or technically that. But so on that, I guess do you have lobbying? Not only with, I guess, the sugar industry, like within, so this carnivore diet that you're pretty fond of, and obviously it doesn't look like it's working for you very well.
This guy's beautiful. People that are listening. Nice tan, shredded.
So there must be lobbying in other sort of fields that sort of push against this carnivore diet, and one, I guess there's probably a big push within the meat industry.
Well, you'd hope so, but the problem with the meat industry is it's very disseminated. There's not like this. It's not like Nestle. It's just this massive multinational, multi-trillion-dollar a year industry, or Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, all these sorts of things. They are all plant-based companies. I mean, they'll use meat as well, but the vast majority of their profits come from plant products. Sugar being a key portion of that. I think.
So are you saying vegans are unhealthy?
Well, but you
twist it.
Well, you have to sort of think about it, though. What is vegan? Vegan just means absence of meat, right?
Yeah.
So Oreo cookies and heroin are vegan.
Fuck yeah.
And this is why
that's an awesome diet.
You could live off cheese pizza and say you're vegan. Not even vegan cheese pizza, and say you're a vegan, but
that's
it's as unhealthy as fuck.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that would be the case with anything, obviously.
Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so it really does matter, the specifics, right? So there are people that go on a vegan diet, and as compared to a standard diet with a bunch of processed garbage, they go to Whole Foods. They really make an effort. They work with a dietitian to really try to cover their macros and micros to really get the most out of it, and they have to supplement because you cannot get a basic complement of nutrition from a vegan diet. They simply don't exist. You can't get B12, D3, K2. You'll never get enough vitamin A because you'd have to eat 3 kilos of carrots a day to get enough vitamin A. And you never get all the essential fatty acids. You can get protein. I mean, that's the thing too, that it's a bit of a straw man that people say is like, oh, well, you say you can't get enough protein here, but but you can. You actually can. It's just not as bioavailable. It's not as
I was about to say the bioavailability is a big factor, because you can absorb it far better through the meat consumption.
You can, yeah. And so the thing is that plants don't actually want you to eat them, funny enough.
That's what I've heard,
and, you know, and, you know, cows don't want you to eat them either. That's why.
I don't think anything wants you to eat them, apart from my ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
But does like stuff like fruit, because it's tasty, like tasty, sugary, that flavour, is that something they want you to eat because then you excrete their seeds into the ground and then it
well, they want
populates
something. They want something to eat.
Yeah.
You know, and so nothing wants to be eaten. You know what I mean? Maybe a lemming. I don't know. But like, you know, so everything has a defense is the main thing, right? And so a cow's defense is by being a big, massive, strong animal that can kick and stomp you to death and stab you with its horns.
Also bogans.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is something Chris Promod mentioned last when he was on. He was talking, and he's not an expert, so we didn't dive too much into it. But defense chemicals within vegetables themselves. Before we go into the carnivore diet itself, like, do you know much about the defense chemicals and what sort of damages they can do to us?
That was the entire reason I stopped eating plants 23 years ago.
Okay.
You know, I was taking cancer biology at the University of Washington in Seattle, my undergrad, and we learned.
How old are you? You look like 25. You're like 23 years ago.
And 23 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just turned 43.
Wow. I'm fucking turning carnivore today.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah. So when I was doing my undergrad, took cancer biology, and I I'd already studied botany, I'd already studied biology. Literally in 7th grade, I learned that plants and animals are in an evolutionary arms race. Plants becoming more and more poisonous, so less and less animals can eat them, so they can survive and thrive. And then animals becoming more and more adapted to specific poisons in specific plants, so they can break those poisons down safely and detoxify them and get the nutrients out of it as well, so they can survive and thrive. And that's their evolutionary niche. This is why even animals that exclusively eat plants, they eat very specific plants.
Yeah.
Right? And so like a koala eats eucalyptus. Like nothing else eats eucalyptus, right?
Yeah.
But a koala doesn't eat anything else.
Yeah.
Because it has the defenses for eucalyptus. It does not have the defenses for spinach and broccoli. It can't eat those things. Yeah. And so, that's how that works. And so if your species hasn't evolved to eat a specific plant, that plant is bad for you to varying degrees. We have some defenses, but we don't have perfect defenses. And the other way that plants defend themselves is by making those nutrients not bioavailable. They're bound up in different chemical bonds that we don't have the enzymes to break apart and split out and take out, right? And so, there's tons of iron in spinach. You can't get it, maybe you'll get a bit of it, but you're not getting much of it. I think it's as important what not to eat as what to eat, and that's because, you eat meat, you eat fat. Fat's very good for you. Cholesterol is actually very good for you. It's what our hormones are made out of. All our cells are made out of it. Our brain is made out of it. So these are very important nutrients that we need. But more than that, like these other things actually cause harm. And so especially when you see like different diseases, I don't think of them as diseases per se. I think of them as toxicities and malnutrition.